I'll just get back into this just for a moment. It's good stuff. Have a read of that. Can you all read it down the back there? No? Okay, I'll read it out for you. It says, it talks about the moon in the Bible. So in Psalm chapter 72 verse 5, in the Bible, I haven't read the Bible, by the way, but I have knowledge about parts of the Bible. That's where I get it from. The King James Bible, modern English, says, "Thou shalt fear thee as long as the sun and the moon endure throughout all generations." Right? That's what today's Bible says. All right. Here is the original Aramaic or Hebrew. Right? And this translation is not done by anyone lightly. These are scholars. These are leaders in their fields who got this translation happening. The original is, "Thou wast feared since the time of the sun and before the time of the moon, a generation of generations." Did you hear what I just said? Before the time of the moon. That's big. In the Bible, it talks about a time before the moon. And when I was in Spain, I had a gentleman come over from Greece, and his wife's Armenian. And he went back and he told her about the stuff about the moon being artificial. And she went, "Yeah, I knew that." And he goes, "What do you mean you knew that?" She goes, "We learnt that at school." How about that? In Armenia, they learnt in school that the moon is artificial. Isn't that amazing? Well, I think it is. And the fact that ufology is a high school elective in Russia, I reckon that's awesome. We don't have anything like that here. Just understand the difference in our cultures. Like I said, this tiny little group in Europe thought the world was flat, but everyone else on the planet, all the North American Indians, South American Indians, Australian Aborigines, African tribes, the rest of the world knew the world was round, understood the structure of the solar system. But then you get this one group that marauds the rest, hides any trace of any of their knowledge, burns all the scriptures, making sure nobody gets all their teachings and cultural philosophies, and then tells everybody they're a bunch of savages. Here you have it. It's in the Bible. Now, let's be realistic about the moon. Let's look at a couple of anomalies about the moon. We look at the moon, right? Now let's be real, okay? Let's just be objective and real. We have a face that looks at us perfectly. That means the moon is spinning on its axis, right? But it's doing it in a way where we only ever see one part of the moon. And not so after 100 years or something, you see a bit more of it. No. Exactly. Like, that's genius. That's not a naturally occurring anomaly. Right, that's one. Right, let's look at it again. It's just so perfect. And you got an eclipse that is just so perfect. Right? Now you get told that that's all by accident. That's all by chance. If that moon was a few kilometres this way, you wouldn't see the edges of the sun. You wouldn't see the sun at all. It'd be blacked out during an eclipse. If you were to have the moon a few kilometres further out, you'd see a thicker part of the sun. It is so precise. We're talking genius precision. Genius precision. And people will say that this is naturally occurring. It's just by chance. Let alone the fact that they pumped a radar into the moon and they discovered it's hollow. Because it rang like a bell in the reports. That's the words used. It rang like a bell. Here you have a heavenly body, and you have something else, if it gets caught in a gravitational field, its orbit becomes elliptical. Our moon is circular. Totally unnatural. Well, I've just given you 3 big clues, let alone the biblical one. 4 massive clues. Millions of people around the world sit there staring at an eclipse. How of them go, shit, that's good. Like, really? That is so perfect. How did that happen? Whoever just questions that, we just sit there and go, wow, in wonder, and don't take it any further. Like, are we asleep or what? Every time you look at the moon, same face. Generation after generation. Isn't that amazing? No one ever questions that. How genius is that? What about the orbit? How genius is that? How about the fact that it's plugged into the reproductive cycles of the feminine? Wow, there's a coincidence. More genius. Why would that be? Why is it before the time of the moon that the female reproductive organs were synchronized with a 28-day rotation of the sun? And ovulation was a euphoric experience. What's going on with the moon? Because here we have an artificial satellite that's been specifically and precisionally placed around our planet. It's a craft that was once built by the Pleiadians. Pleiadians are playing a very big role here on this Earth. They don't have it anymore. It's not theirs. That's ancient times. But our love for the moon is from those times, because that ship, that craft, was used to seed life in the cosmos, and especially in this galaxy. It was built by one of the 7 muses, one of the 7 sisters, one of the beings that is the consciousness of one of the stars of the Pleiades. This isn't fairy tale. People will want to accuse me saying, George, you're just making up a whole lot of fairy tale. Go right ahead. I don't mind, but that's not what's going on here. I'm giving you galactic history. I don't like the word history because it's his story. I'm just giving you the way things went in the galaxy, how they eventuated. And that was a beautiful planetoid. It had its own ecosystem. It was an incredible craft. It was a beacon of life and light in this universe. And the amount of beings, not only on a physical level, that were on that craft, but all the beings that worked on other etheric levels, different dimensional levels. Because when you create a reality, if you're going to seed a life into a planetary system, you have to understand who the consciousness is of that planet. You need to understand what the intentions of that planet is, that being. You then need to have an understanding of the intention of all the souls who are going to incarnate into the environment that you are creating. You understand what their set of experiences are going to be. You need to understand what the intended outcome of their set of experiences are going to be. So then you have to understand all the energetic templates that are required to be created first in order to manifest physical life in its appropriate form. Because it has to see the time out. You've got to understand the interaction with all the life forms that are going to take place on that planetary system, and you've got to create templates and life in a way that's going to be sustainable, that's not going to self-destruct. Right? This is what it means to know how to create life in a sustainable way. And that's just a brief summary, what I just gave you. Just a brief summary. Like, you've got to know. You've got to be connected to the divine plan. You've got to know the way things are flowing, the way things are unfolding in life. Because what you do there has a ripple effect. You've got to understand what the ripple effect is. That's what I'm doing everywhere I go. You know, you drop a stone in the water. Every talk I do, that's what I'm doing. I just dropped another stone here. Ripple effect. The energy goes out in the grids. Everything you do, everywhere you go, that's what you're doing. Ripple effect. So that planetoid was an incredible thing. And then what happened? Was Earth started falling into the clutches of the draconian empires. Now there's good Dracos, right? If I was to give a percentage, I would say about 30% of them are good guys. 70%, nah. Don't like them. They're not very nice. I respect them because they're great warriors. They're warrior races. But you know, we've got this thing called draconian laws, right? Anyone ever thought about where does that saying come from? Why there's a star system called Alpha Draconis and we have draconian laws? It's like, hello? And then we have the reptilian clans that are life forms that have been created after the draconian races. They are their off-branch cousins. Percentage, maybe 20% of them are good, 80% are undesirable. Am I judging? Yes, I am. But not judging in the way you think. I'm discerning. There's a difference. I'm just stating how it is. Because I respect them. I wouldn't be the man I am here today without them. Because they've given me hell in this life. But I wouldn't have the intestinal fortitude if I didn't have those experiences. So I'm grateful. And when they came to this solar system, because they got wind, they go like, because they monitor things. Remember I said to you, they monitor what's going on because they want to know where the attention is, where the energy is. And when they realised that this planet was being seeded with so much life force, so much diversity, it got their attention. And they moved in on the place. And a being that you can, I'll use the label, Diana, you're used to that, the moon goddess. That's one label you can use for this being from the Pleiades. She came to defend the Earth with that planetoid. And everyone told her, don't do it. You're going to lose. But she couldn't help herself. That was her lesson in getting involved in the drama. So her vibration fell after that, dramatically. But boy, was she treated badly after that incident. Because once they got a hold of that moon, they had... Okay, a lot of the information was taken out even before they went into battle. But they got so much information about the life force here. It's all the different life forms, all our connection to all the races out there. Remember? Microcosm of the macrocosm. Right? So you can imagine how much information is involved in seeding life here. And it wasn't just the Pleiadians, but the major role that they played was our natural environment. Do they have their genetics here? Yes, every single race has their genetics here. Absolutely. And they lost that battle. And then it was trashed. They got so much information and then it was trashed. And people have memories of this. And we have this deep love for the moon. And then it was put around Mars and it was totally trashed. And then it was brought here to Earth. They got what they could out of it, trashed it, smothered it with silica, and it was brought and placed around Earth in a specific orbit about 6,000 years ago. Now, I made a mistake. I don't know what happened to me in that moment, but I'm still a normal guy. I make the odd mistake. And in an interview with Lisa, I actually said that the moon knocked the Earth off its axis, and that's not true. But the moon's been here for about 6,000 years. Now, there is evidence in the geological records that there was no tides. And I go, oh no, there's tidal marks. I go, no, there's storm surge marks. Right? They're regular wind surge marks. They are not tidal marks. I mean, get a geologist and get them to actually, get one that will actually tell you the truth, for starters. Get one who's going to be real with you. Because they're all told to do that. Just like pilots. Don't say anything. Sign the thing. You speak, you lose your job. Simple as that. This isn't being conspiratorial in drama. This is how it is, folks. This is the reality of how things are done. So if you look at the tidal marks, there aren't none after go back beyond 6,000 years. Just like the Sphinx, right? Water erosion marks all over the Sphinx dating back over 17,000 years. The Egyptians didn't build the pyramids. Let's be real. They didn't build the pyramids. The Egyptians built the little crumbly ones with slaves. But the main 3 pyramids, they weren't built by the Egyptians. The little crumbly ones are much younger than the big ones. But you won't get told that. Do you think the Egyptians will ever admit that they didn't build the big pyramids? You're kidding me, right? They'll never do that. But that's reality. That's reality. So, I gave you the history of the moon. Why was it placed around Earth? Because it's the mechanical device that's being used to suppress the feminine. It's the ball and chain around the feminine. Because how are they going to do it? Okay, they're pretty good at manipulating energy, but not on this scale. They needed something that was going to do it. They needed a mechanical device, and the moon is it. And the moon pulls and contorts the oceans, which is pulling and contorting the emotional body of the feminine. And us men have no idea what women go through. That's reality. As much as I know about the divine feminine, I have no idea. Really. Us guys, really, fellas, we need to understand what women experience in their day-to-day life. They are living a whole different paradigm to us. That's reality. The load that every woman on this planet carries is a similar experience to what the planet is going through as a whole, what the divine feminine is going through as a whole. And the closer we as men begin to get in contact with our feminine side, the more you get to this understanding. And the more you understand that we have no idea the load that they carry and the experiences that they're having and the intensity and the pain that they carry. Please just start to get real about life. Isn't that right, darling? Yeah. Yeah. My greatest teacher. I'm learning. I am learning. So we have this ascension process coming up. And I talked about the Earth's crust, which will implode into the centre of the planet. And I know it sounds nuts. And what we've been seeing lately with the earthquakes and the tidal waves is just a taste of things to come. They'll become more frequent. And you get told, right, okay, all the conspiratorialists, it's HAARP. That's all you hear. All over the internet at the moment. There's people that are overdosing on iodine, right, in the States because they're freaking out because they're frightened about the fallout situation going to the Americas. That's not going to happen. It's so localised, the situation. I mean, even if you dropped an atomic bomb in Japan like they did, the fallout would still not reach America. It would be so faint. That's the reality. Yes, over time it does have an effect, but not to the degree that everybody's thinking. It's the drama. It's a conspiratorial realm. It gets people drawn in. It sucks people in. It's like you've got two friends that are having an argument, right? Are you going to get drawn into that argument? Or are you just going to go, that's theirs? Right? This is how it works. It's a battle for your attention. Even David Icke says it. They're fighting for our attention and our awareness. This is what the fight's for. I'm trying to help you to get your own minds back. This conspiratorial drama is growing exponentially at the moment. It's getting really big. And you've got to understand how to be that. Because they want to suck you in. If they haven't got you in a religion, and if they haven't got you in a New Age paradigm, if they haven't got you over in India under the whim of a guru, if they haven't got you in the paradigm of science, if they haven't got you in all these little recipes for the mind that they've got all over the planet, then if you get all conspiratorial and rebellious, then they're going to drag you and suck you into the conspiratorial drama. And that's a big labyrinth. Layer upon layer upon layer of conspiracies. Took me a while to get through it, but I had the point of reference of my experiences. So what I'm saying to you all, through this whole galactic drama, through this whole solar system drama, universal drama to begin with, now planetary drama, be that. Please be that. That's what I ask of you. This is what it means to remain centered and hold your integrity as a sovereign being of life. That's what it means. It's that simple. And those other words, just be. Be you. And remain in your integrity, and you'll be okay. Because this whole reality needs to deconstruct. And they say, George, where's the evidence? You're talking crap. There's no evidence. I say, there's no evidence. I say, open your eyes, man. Look around you. It's everywhere. The evidence is literally everywhere. Okay, I'll go into some more detail. The Hadron Collider. I got to see the paperwork. When they first collided, those first particles, they got so scared. Because all the elements and the whole surrounding region there became unstable. And all the results were saying that they didn't do it. And all these other scientists saying, we're not doing that again. They got scared. Oh, they got really frightened. Destabilising reality. Come on, we're talking about some big stuff here. Anyone who knows anything about atomical structures and how it affects everything on life on all levels. I mean, you saw what happened when they split an atom, right? The atom bomb, right? That's just from splitting a tiny little atom. So please understand what we're talking about here. We're talking about a lot of power. We're talking about 0-point energy. We're talking about universal energy. And then they did it again, another experiment, and it destabilised again. But you know what was right, what they did this time? They were able to map the difference, destabilisation from the first one to the destabilisation to the second one. And then they shut it down. And then what they did is they had other colliders, and they redid some of those experiments the best they can to the performance of these other colliders. And the same results. They started to see the same results. So they have affirmative proof on the scientific community level, right? I haven't even gotten to the Montauk projects yet. Scientific community level in recent times that this whole reality is destabilising. Because elements are stable and elements are unstable. You have unstable elements, you have more stable elements. So they've got this whole thing listed and charted. Now, I'm not a scientist, but I know this stuff. And what they realised was there was a rate of instability occurring. So they did a whole series of experiments, and after every experiment, one after the other, all the elements are becoming unstable, more and more and more. They graphed it. And they came up with a graph that said instability infinitum. In other words, all the elements are becoming unstable at such a rate that there's no end result. It's infinite. They can't see the end of the rate of the elements becoming unstable. How about that? That's big news. Let alone the time chair experiments at Montauk, for anyone who knows about this stuff. Right, the Dracos ran it, there were Greys involved, they were breeding people within these experiments who had the juice in their genes to be able to sit in that time chair and go forward in time. They bred people specifically for that task. And if you know anything about time travel, every time you go forward, you go a probable reality. Probable reality. It's like a trunk of a tree. The people who are doing these experiments, some of them won't admit to this, because you know, they're the ones with the real power, right? Because they're playing with technology, right? So if you go forward in time, you have the main trunk of the timeline, but you have all these little branches. So you can imagine like a tree that's fallen, that's had all its branches cut off, and you have nodules. And a lot of these nodules are possibilities, probable little timelines. So every time you do an experiment in time travel, you go off on a, depends on the angle of your tangent from this timeline. So what they did is they kept going on all these timelines. But what was interesting is they all got to a probable future on this planet, and on exactly the same day, each forward momentum, they got to this day, they got to that day, and everything went pure light. Isn't that fascinating? This reality ceased to exist, and it was just nothing but light here. Every time they went forward when they got to that date. I think that's awesome. Now, I'm just giving you a couple of little tidbits, behind the scenes information. Let alone just looking around us and seeing how everything's changing and how we're changing ourselves. Don't you know yourself? How well do you know yourself? How do you see relationships just falling apart around you? We see it. We see ourselves, just old friends just falling away, new friends coming into our lives. You try to maintain friendships with other people, but when your frequency is rising in vibration, and it's doing it fast, if you're in an accelerated momentum with your frequency rising, you will see your awareness changes, your vibration changes, and those old friends who still want to indulge in those older paradigms, they just start getting uncomfortable. You see them less often, they fall away. And if you try to hold it, you'll end up having an argument or something, and they'll be forced out of your life because you didn't read the signs early. So these lives that we're having, so where I'm coming from as George, right? Where am I sharing this information from as well? It's not just the experiences as George where I'm coming from. Like you'll notice at times it get really intense. That's my inner warrior coming out. When I was talking about religion before, and I was like really intense, that's because I needed to be. That's more of me came in, and I was just my inner warrior, just going, making a stand. You know what I mean? Make a stand. You get assertive. You exercise your inner fort and your castle. And you go, this is how it is. Don't care what anyone says. You feel your sovereignty. Okay? And so we have this processional cycle. I'm just trying to share that here we've had multiple incarnations along this timeline. And it's all governed by the higher self. So, to help you with this process as well is, I'll give you me as an example. I, as George, needed to release and surrender control of this life. Because I'm getting into free will here now, right? This is a touchy subject for a few people. Free will, what is free will? Does it exist? Do we have free will? My answer is yes and no. And I get the comments, George, you contradict yourself all the time. I go, I don't. I actually just speak from a multidimensional level. So I'll give you the answer again. Do we have free will? From down here? Yes. Do we have free will? From the fifth dimension? No. See? Contradiction? Just understanding where I'm coming from. The higher self realm in the 5th D and above governs all the lives that we have in the lower part of the cosmos. Because George did not make the decision to incarnate here on Earth. George, this personality as George, if you're a psychiatrist, you go, see, I told you it was schizo, right? Because I'm talking in the third person now, so I must be, right? Oh, I'm a schizophrenic and so am I. So George did not make the decision to incarnate. I'm coming from my transpersonal self now, the observer, right? George did not make the decision to incarnate. George is the personality of this single life, this incarnation. I'm in touch with the rest of me, right? Not all of me, but I do have a good connection with more of me than just George, my essence, right? Beyond the mind. We're not talking mind now. Deeper into the essence of who I am, my being. Right? way beyond any paradigm any psychologist or psychiatrist are going to try and pin you down on. Because, you know, they're not... Like I said, there's some good psychiatrists, there's some good psychologists. There are. But what are they really? What are they really? They are border patrol guards to make sure you maintain the status quo. Okay? They want to take this grand awareness that I have and they want to squash it back down to make me conform into the status quo of society. So that's all they are. They're programmed to do that. They're not going to entertain the idea of extraterrestrial life, which is itself deluded, right? To entertain the idea that they don't exist, right? Let alone all the rest of the stuff I've shared with you here today. Right? What is wisdom? You know, we're not talking intellectual knowledge, that's mind. What I'm sharing with you here today is wisdom, even though you go through the knowledge process in the mind. George did not create this life. George is the being, the part of me, the essence of me, the aspect of me that is living this life out here. This is the ego of this incarnational construct. But there's a part of me that made the decision to incarnate. A higher aspect of me. A part of me that's outside this reality. That's the higher self. That's the higher being. Okay? So I'm not the composer and the conductor, and the constructor. That was a Freudian slip there. I'm not the composer and the orchestrator and the conductor of this life. I'm living this life. I'm in the movie, living the experiences. So, technically, I do not have free will. And if you want to get to this grander understanding, release and surrender your lower ego. Not to a bunch of angels, that's the New Age thing. I'm not asking you to give your power away and release and surrender your free will and your ego to angels. No. Because only the angels of the true realm will tell you everything that I've shared with you here today. Because I did this, you know, when I was being abducted and I was going through hell and I went to all these healers, right? And some of them helped me. And I was just, Archangel, please help me. Archangel with a flaming blue sword, come and help me, please, I beg you. And I had this experience one night when I met with Archangel Michael. And he said, what are you doing? I said, what? I'm begging for your help, man. Can't you see what's happening in my life? And he said, what are you asking me for help for? Do it yourself. He said, you've got the whole universe in there, do it yourself. You want blue light, bring it out. I went, oh, just in that moment. It's like a aha moment, you know? And I had it. And then from then on, when I got back here and I was having more and more experiences and all the GFL stuff, I realised how we're being duped. Whenever you meditate and you use another being's energy to bring it in, right, like Saint Germain and the violet flame is a good one, right? Not a good one to do, but a good example to use right here, right now. Because we had a guy in Perth who does that. He says, I bring the violet flame in, the violet light, and I put it in every cell of my body. He said that. And we had an interaction, and he was freaking out. In the end, he lost it, basically. He got very angry and very aggressive, swearing and, you know. It was sad. On one level, it was sad. He's a nice man. I could see the genuine guy in there screaming out for help. But these entities, every time you do that, they come in and they possess you. It's like in the old days, possession. You know, I'm just using that term. But they anchor their tentacles into you and they slowly take over your personality. Now I said to him, you're going to hurt. I said, it's like heroin now. For you to get that energy out of your system, it's going to be like a heroin addict giving up its addiction. Because he brought it right down consciously into his cellular level. You've got to understand what we're dealing with here. I hope I'm not frightening anybody here, but you've got to understand what we're dealing with here. If you're going to meditate and you're going to use light, bring your inner light out. Please. Please understand how powerful you are. We are fractals of the universe. We are human. We are godly beings. Meditate, bring your inner light out. And I had an issue with this in the beginning. Because you know what? It comes to worthiness issues now, if you want to get a bit psychiatric about it. It comes down to worthiness issues because we don't feel that our light is worthy, so we have an issue doing that because we habitually externalise everything. We can't help it. We've been programmed, not only in this lifetime, but again, throughout the bloodline, back through the centuries, marinating in it. So what I did to overcome the block that I had was I started pulling it out physically. I just visualised my light there. I could do that. And then I just visualised myself pulling it out with my hands. And this mechanical process with my hands then overrode the mental block that I had, the program. And after a few times of that, then each time now I can just do it myself without having to do it with my hands. It's a wonderful feeling. It really is. Just to shine your own light. Shine your light. Shine your magnificence. It's so powerful. Oh, they don't want you to know this. They don't want you to know how powerful you are. They want to continue to do this to you. They want to continue to feed off your energy. Don't feed them anymore. Please. Be the sovereign beings that you are. I cried a lot over this, knowing just how far humanity's gone. But then this wondrous feeling in my heart of joy just sings out because I know what's about to happen. You are sovereign. You've got to know what that means. I'm a sovereign being of life. You have a right to everything in life. And these doorways are going to open up and you'll just know to walk through them. Some of you might not, and that's all right. You just go off the planet and you go to another planetary system, whichever way you want to go off the planet, whether it's through the ships or through a stargate, through a wormhole, it's your choice. But on 21st of December 2012, when the doorway's shut, that's when Mother Earth really straightens up on her axis to find centre. And no one will survive out here during that process. No one. So some will perish in the earth changes, but that number's going to be very small relative to the current population of the planet. So this theory that multitudes are going to perish, don't buy into that. And that's, for me, that I don't resonate with that at all. What I do resonate with is there'll be quite a few people who will be lured off-world. Quite a few. Minimum 2 billion. I'll say between 2 and 3.5 billion will be lured off-world. That's my feelings at the moment. I can't say that's an absolute fact. Okay, that's not a substantiated knowing within me. That's at the moment how I feel about things. I will always say when I don't think something is quite on the mark. So these openings you'll just know. And because all these other beings are going to come and present their version of ascension. Their version of ascension. And they're going to be quite tantalising. You know, they're very good at what they do. Remember? Eons of evolution, of manipulating life and awareness. They're very good at what they do. So just go within yourself, see what feels right for you and follow that. Because every journey, every soul is sovereign, everything is honoured here. You don't have to do what I say to do. Okay? I'm sharing with you what I'm doing. I'm going through these doorways. See if I can get a picture happening here. I'm going to go through one of these openings because I've already got this really beautiful relationship happening with Mother Earth. And it's like, you know the serpent rope in the South American Indians? I don't know if any of you are aware with that. They've got this thing called the serpent rope. And it's the energetic stream that comes from the centre of the galaxy to the Earth. And it's an umbilical cord. And people say, oh, you've got to go to the centre of the galaxy because that's where the higher beings are. Well, I don't want to do that because I've already had that experience. I've come to Earth to birth into this new way of life. So when we're birthed, you don't go back up the umbilical cord, you go through the womb of the mother. How about that? So I'm staying with Big Mama and I'm going to see it through. That's what I'm doing. You choose what you want to do. But that's what feels right for me. That's what feels right for Cynthia. That's what feels right for very, very many, didn't sound very good, for lots of people around the world. Okay? That's how we understand things to be. That's how we feel it inside of ourselves. That's where we want to go. And these ETs that come along and try to lure you with their versions of ascension, that's up to you. But you'll only ever be stuck in that 4D paradigm if you go that way. That's how I know things to be.